Well, meanwhile, Congress trying to get to the bottom of the troubling Veterans Affairs scandal. They're holding a second primetime hearing tonight, just the first of a series of meetings to find out how veterans' medical treatment has been delayed and why nothing apparently was done to stop it, causing those families say the deaths of at least 40 vets. Florida Congressman Jeff Miller, chair of the House Veterans Affairs Committee, joins us here in New York with more on this. Congressman, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is so troubling. It is so tragic. How bad do you think it is?
We're going to see today what the internal review of the Department of Veterans Affairs is going to show. I suspect that it's going to be a lot worse than what a lot of people suspect. We're focused on Phoenix, but as we said, it has been systemic. I would suspect that we're talking about numbers that are probably over 100,000 that are on the waiting list.
So if there are 100,000 on the waiting list and you have, let's say, 40 deaths so far, could the number of potential deaths, could that reach the hundreds?
Well, and remember, we have always said that 40 people died while they were on the waiting list. We already know that there have been 23 deaths that have occurred because of delays in care at Augusta, at Columbia, South Carolina, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in other parts of the country. So we know it's systemic. Why the Department of Veterans Affairs waited so long to acknowledge the fact that this is not just an isolated incident, but it is part of the bureaucracy that exists out there is beyond me.
But this wasn't supposed to happen. The president in 2009, he's in front of the veterans of foreign wars in Phoenix, August 17th, 2009, promising to, quote, slash the wait times, expand your health care, as well as cut the red tape. That's the promise from the commander-in-chief. What happened?
Obviously, he wasn't paying attention, and Secretary Shinseki, I believe, was kept in the dark to a greater extent. We do know that the knowledge of what was going on actually has gone high up in the central office, and we're trying to piece together the parts. We know that the chief of staff actually knew that there was manipulation of wait times in places like Cheyenne, and unfortunately, we now have this crisis that has erupted out there where, thank goodness, the media is paying attention to what we have been trying to uncover and show for a number of years. We've got to fix it. Failure is not an option. We all have to come together, Republicans and Democrats, and make the right decision to fix it for the veterans.
It is so offensive. How do you think this happened in the first place? You're saying they allegedly covered this up, they hid this, they knew about this. What is the culture of morality and ethics at the VA to potentially allow this?
It makes one wonder why you would manipulate numbers. Was it to get a bonus, to get a promotion? That's what we believe is probably the culprit in all of this.
Doing that on the backs of those who served?
Unfortunately, you have individuals that feel like they're protected within the VA. Nobody's been held accountable. We've asked the department to tell us now since January who was disciplined or held accountable in South Carolina and Georgia for the deaths that occurred there because of lapses in care. We cannot get an answer from the Department of Veterans Affairs. And that's what's wrong. They've got to quit stonewalling Congress. We are a co-equal branch. They need to work with us as we try to solve the problem that exists.
Well, how can we fix this? Do you think it can eventually be fixed when you're dealing with wait times of, what, 3 months? 1,000 were waiting 6 months or more, according to that IG report. And speaking of the IG, how about a Department of Justice investigation? Criminal charges, putting people in jail.
Absolutely. I believe there is criminality here. We're trying to walk through that, make sure that we have all the facts in place. I've asked Attorney General Holder to become involved. What has
he said? What is his reaction?
He hasn't responded yet, which is typical.
All right, I'm sorry. You have these deaths. You're a congressional committee. You asked the Attorney General of the United States about this, and he hasn't responded?
Has not responded. You would think that the White House would understand that this is not the appropriate way to take care of the veterans in this country, that all of America is paying attention to what's going on, and there's a spotlight focused on the Department of Veterans Affairs, unlike any that's ever been before. And regardless of whether the Bo Bergdahl story has pushed it off the front page, we are not going to quit, especially in the House of Representatives, in focusing on the failures of this department to do their job appropriately.
All right, Congressman Jeff Miller, the hearing later on tonight, the first of many more. And I think Americans want you to get to the bottom of this, and I thank you for joining us.
We're not going to quit. Thank you.
Absolutely. Martha?